So Marathon's a game that's been on my radar for quite a while. I've been pretty interested in seeing exactly what it was going to be like after that cinematic that they dropped a while back. I thought the art style seemed pretty cool. That cinematic was great. I really liked, just the sort of story that they were building with Marathon. I felt like maybe we were going to get something a little bit more engaging compared to some other games that have been releasing in the FPS space for a long time now. Also, with Call of Duty just not piquing my interest this year in Black Ops 7, I've been looking for alternatives. So far we've got Battlefield 6, Arc Raiders, which both games have been absolutely fantastic in my opinion. Even with all the problems Battlefield 6 has had, I still do enjoy playing it pretty much every day. Arc Raiders, same thing. I really enjoy that game a lot. So I thought, hey, here's another game. Let's see if it's going to meet those expectations, exceed them, or basically not. Unfortunately, I don't really think that Marathon is as great of a game as I was hoping it would be. And of course, I'm going to break down all of my opinions and thoughts here in this video. But before we do that, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, and turn on notifications set to all so you can stay up to date with all of the content here in the channel. And let's just dive right on into it. So if there's one thing I could say to basically sum up how I feel about Marathon, it's that I'm a little bit disappointed. There's a lot of things about this that I really think should have been improved upon. There's a lot of things that I did end up enjoying, but for the most part, I just can't really see myself playing Marathon every single day the way I can other games. One of the things that's really interesting about what's been happening between, of course, 2025 and 2026 now is that the extraction genre is getting bigger. For the most part, extraction shooters have always, I felt, been really niche. There's a group of people that really enjoy them, and then it doesn't really have that mass appeal that a first-person shooter style like Call of Duty and Battlefield have. Those games just tend to have a more large mass appeal. But for the most part, extraction shooters have kind of been relegated to their own groups. Then with Arc Raiders, I feel like that changed. I don't know exactly what Arc Raiders did, to sort of prove to people that this genre is worth trying, but I do think fundamentally one of the biggest reasons is that Arc Raiders made the genre accessible to anybody who wanted to play, whether you're a PvE player or a PvP player or a mix of both. I think Arc Raiders was just accessible, and it doesn't require as much of a crazy grind. The free kits are just as fine as having your own really good loadout. You're basically competitive, it's casual. It's not 100% easy, it's not the easiest game on earth, right? But it's just more casual friendly. Marathon now has to effectively compete with Arc Raiders to get that genre's attention from Arc Raiders. But I just feel like Marathon didn't do enough. Personally, what I think about Marathon is that I don't think it will have a mass audience the way that Arc Raiders does. I think Marathon is going to be fine, it's going to thrive, it's not going to flop like Conquered or Highguard or anything like that. I just think Marathon is going to work within its own community. I think there's going to be a dedicated player base, it's going to be substantial enough that the game will survive, but I don't think that it's going to be Arc Raiders level in terms of just how many players are going to be on there every day. Now, why do I say Marathon won't have a mass appeal in terms of players? Obviously, the player count has gone down since the first day, and when it comes to people trying games, that's expected, especially when it's a free sort of kind of demo of the game. But I think there's a lot of reasons that Marathon sort of missed the mark for a mass appeal sort of extraction shooter, especially now when, they kind of had that opportunity because more people are open to that genre. I think the first problem and the most egregious problem is the UI. It is probably, I will have to say, no, honestly, it is the worst UI I have ever seen in a video game, maybe ever. I've played a lot of games. I've played games with really bad UIs and games with decent and games with great UIs. This takes the cake as being the worst UI experience, especially if you're a console player. It's not optimized at all for being on console. There's so many menus, so many text boxes, so many screens, so much color. I think, it looks cool visually for I think a graphic design portfolio, but in a video game, it's really not a good menu at all. And I said this before, I think that the problem with a lot of UI and UX designers these days is that they're going for that cool factor in menus, which, okay, sure, if you want to do that in a streaming service, I understand. If you want to do that on a website, that's whatever. But when it comes to a video game, you need to make it as easy as possible for somebody to load in and just move on with their life, because there's like a million games releasing constantly. And if you can't compete for those people's attention, you're gonna lose them. And yeah, something as simple as a menu can really turn people away from a game if they don't even know what they're navigating to. The art style itself is something that I'm a little bit conflicted on. On the one hand, I really like unique art styles and I think they're really cool, and I appreciate when a game actually takes risks in this sort of a thing. I really think that the sci-fi kind of almost bizarre alien type of thing that they're going for is really neat and very unique, and I personally enjoy a lot of games that like to take unique approaches to art styles. But in Marathon, I just feel like something's not clicking, if that makes sense. In a TV show, in a movie, I would have loved this art style. I feel like the cinematic just really proved that to me, because the cinematic was visually brilliant. It does look like something out of those, you know, anthology type shows you'd see on Netflix. It just worked in a show format. When it comes down to working in a video game, it just doesn't really work. I feel like visually there's just something that's not working. The colors, plus the shape of everything, plus just the way it all kind of cohesively doesn't work, in my opinion, for a game like this. There's just a lot going on at the same time. So many things on the screen, so much in the UI. It's very cluttered, very text heavy. Just somehow it's like almost like visual brain rot in a way, where there's just so much happening at once that you can't really concentrate on one thing. I think that's also part of the issue, is that it's just more confusing than it needs to be, because you have so many things to consider and think about. The looting system is confusing, the stuff you're getting is confusing, everything looks the same. It's just not clear what it is that you're picking up, who it is that you're fighting. Something about it just doesn't work, I think, in an overall aspect. Another huge problem I think with this game is the movement. So when I was watching some of the gameplay videos, I didn't really notice this when I was watching it, but after I played, I kind of realized just how slow and clunky the movement is. Even when you're sprinting, when you're just walking normally, you're really slow. When you're sprinting, you're really slow. It's kind of surprising just how slow and heavy your character feels. And you know, you could make the argument, well, they're wearing armor, but you know, even if you're picking the ones that don't wear like a lot of armor at all, right? Why are they so slow? You almost feel like an elephant running around even when you have your sprint enabled. So I think that the movement is really something that turned me away from this game, because I just don't feel like I'm fast, especially in a futuristic setting. I would expect to be able to sprint relatively quickly, and this just didn't really feel like it was actually implemented correct. The gunplay itself is actually really good. I can't really say that I don't like the gunplay at all. That would be a lie. I really enjoyed the gunplay. I think the guns are very punchy, very smooth. They look pretty cool visually speaking, but I think for the most part, the issue with the gunplay is that all of them feel the same. So there's not really a lot of variety between different weapons. You don't necessarily feel like you're getting that much of a experience when you pick up a new one versus when you're using a different one, that sort of a thing. I just feel like everything feels the same. But you know, the sound is nice, the sound design is really good. The graphics quality itself is actually really solid, especially when I was playing on my PlayStation. I was really surprised at how nice it looked. But I just think, like I said before, everything is just so confusing that it really overshadows any of the positive aspects of this game. You would have to play quite a lot of this game in order to understand what's happening. And the thing is, for video games, within your first 2 hours, that's like your window to capture people's attention. I feel like you would need a lot of hours to be able to understand what's really happening in Marathon, and I think that's sort of part of the issue as to why I don't think this game's gonna have a mass appeal. When it comes to video games, your tutorial is really important, especially in these games. Like we saw in Arc Raiders, the tutorial was really comprehensive on basically everything you're gonna experience in that game. In Marathon, the tutorial was confusing. The tutorial wasn't explanatory enough, and within your first 2 hours, you won't really be able to understand everything that's happening in this game, and that is a huge problem, because when it comes to video games, unless you're somebody that's like really willing to give something a huge chance, within your first 2 hours, that's like your window to capture player attention. After that, people are not really going to feel encouraged enough to play, and they won't want to stick it out, because when you tell somebody that, oh, the game gets good in like 10-20 hours, you know, that's a hard sell for most people. You know, 20 hours is a lot of time. That's almost an entire day of someone's life just to experience something good in a game, right? So I think that's part of the problem with Marathon. You just need too much time to actually understand and enjoy it. Another thing here I wanted to hit on when it comes to PvP and PvE, because this game has both. I think the PvP is definitely Marathon's strong suit. It's more common, I think, than Arc Raiders. I feel like more people are just encouraged to go PvP in this game than they are in Arc Raiders. Typically, my lobbies are just mostly PvE when I'm in Arc Raiders, but in Marathon, I felt more encouraged to go for the PvP, and I think everybody else kind of was as well. I definitely think that is a positive for Marathon, that if you wanted a more challenging, more tense experience when it comes to an extraction shooter, I think that that you would really like Marathon in comparison to Arc Raiders just for that aspect. However, Arc Raiders is full of PvP. I think it just really depends on how you're playing it, but I think Marathon is just more encouraging for PvP focused players. Another thing that sort of was a little bit weird though in Marathon was that you couldn't accept multiple contracts for your factions at the same time. So you can only pick one contract at a time, and you got to play that in exfil and basically be done, and then you can move on to the next contract. I definitely thought that was a bit weird because I feel like you should be able to pick multiple contracts and just play them at the same time. And when you finish certain tasks, you know, just move on with it. Whatever you finish first is what you finish first. I don't really know why it's so linear in that sense. I think that is something that is a weak point here for the game's actual experience. So overall, there's not really too much to say about this game. I think that for the most part, I sort of covered the worst parts about Marathon. I think that this is definitely not a game for everyone, and I don't see it being a game for everyone. I don't see it really having a huge audience. It'll have a dedicated audience, but just not a huge one. And I think that part of the thing that I've seen with the discourse around this game is that people are saying we need to let games be unique and that it's wrong to hate on innovation. And I actually agree with that. I don't think it's right to get annoyed just because a game feels different or looks different. I always like when games actually take risks, when they experiment with things. You know, that's why I know a lot of people don't like the visual style of Marathon. I think it's interesting. I don't hate it. I don't love it. It's not my favorite, but I don't hate it at the same time. I think it's just different. And I think that that definitely isn't, you know, everyone's cup of tea, so to speak. But I feel like, you know, a game can be innovative, and I don't see a problem with that. But Marathon just isn't that fun. And I think that's ultimately the issue. It's just not that fun. It's innovating in a lot of things, and I'll give them that, but it's not as fun because it's not offering ultimately a lot compared to other extraction shooters. It's not really the best game out there, and it's not as unique as I was personally hoping for it to be. I think this game shouldn't have taken the extraction shooter genre route. I think it should have taken something different. I feel like it would have benefited a lot more from that, especially because, you know, this is Bungie at the end of the day. People are probably just gonna try it for the sake of it being Bungie. But I think that's also kind of another issue here, because I think a lot of Destiny 2 players are really upset over Bungie's handling of Destiny 2 and sort of dropping it for supporting Marathon. And I think that that's definitely left sort of a sour taste in people's mouth in regards to how Bungie could possibly handle Marathon into the future. I think that's definitely playing a role in people's sort of anger towards this game. I personally don't really see why they would have dropped Destiny 2 for this. I've played both games. I've played Destiny 2 a lot in the past, and I really felt like that game was good. I thought it was a solid title, and I don't really see why they've really waned off support for it, especially for Marathon. I just don't really see that having been a reasonable take. Would I see myself playing Marathon often? No, not really. I don't particularly hate it, but I don't find it encouraging to play compared to other games that have released or will be releasing soon. I just think that it doesn't really hold enough appeal for me to want to keep playing it, right? Like if it wasn't a demo, I just wouldn't have tried it anyways. You know, I think the biggest issue for me is it's just a lot slower than I thought it would be. You know, I figured that based on the marketing, the hype, the trailers, that it was going to be fast-paced, action-packed, super tense, you know, very suspenseful, especially after that cinematic. Like I said before, you know, they really presented a much different game than what we saw. And obviously cinematics aren't a representation of the game, it's a cinematic, but you'd think that it would have accurately represented at least how it will feel to play. And instead it was just slower. It just wasn't as fun as I thought it was going to be. I think that's ultimately why I'm a little bit disappointed with Marathon. It's a challenging one. I think the enemies are actually decently powered and things like that, but you know, I just don't really see myself going in and playing this every single day. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below, how you feel about Marathon. Leave a like, share, subscribe, and turn on notifications set to all so you can stay up to date with all of the content here in the channel. And that's all for today, folks.